provide the audience an opportunity to ask matter-of-fact questions to an expert group about the development, commercialization, and usage of AI application, products, and services. While moderated, the question and focus for Town Hall will be driven by audience interaction and a frank discussion with our esteemed panelists. Our moderator for today is Nikhil Narender, partner at Trilegal. We have 5 panelists today. We have Dr. Shubhi Chaturvedi, who is the Chief Corporate Affairs and Public Policy Officer at InMobi. We have Sunil Abraham, Chief Policy Director, Data Economy and Emerging Tech at Meta. We have Vivek Abraham, Senior Director, External Strategy, India and Southeast Asia at Salesforce. We have Shikhar Shivasubramaniam, CEO, Vadwani AI. And we have Chamin NG, who is the Director, Asia Pacific for Schneider Electric. A warm welcome to all the panelists.
Thank you. Thank you. So the idea of this session is to make it interactive and do something different, because we typically sit through panels where there's just a lot of one-way communication. So trust a lawyer, that is me, to do that job for you. So let me briefly start with a quick question to the panelists. So first, let me start with Subhi. Subhi, if you can tell us about what you do, and what is your outlook on AI, and how AI is transforming your personal life and professional life.
Thank you. Sorry, am I audible at the back? Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Subhi Chaturvedi. By way of introduction, I lead global public policy for India's first unicorn. That deserves a round of applause. Thank you. And we're right here in Bengaluru. So Bengaluru is both Karma Bhumi, Janma Bhumi for us, about 3,000 engineers strong. And we're now present in 26 countries globally, so firmly an MNC. Our second unicorn is called Glance, which is on 400 million devices. It's the first screen that you see on any Android phone. Very proud to continue to build AI-first solutions from India for the world. One of the first conversations we had today was why AI, why now, how is it impacting you personally, how is it impacting the organization per se. So for us, 5 years ago, there was conversation around privacy by design. For us, AI was no longer a choice. We've been AI first for many, many years. The intention was to harness the best that AI offers. What changed over the last 2 years per se is the UI UX. So we are very grateful to our friends at IBM who created Watson. When we looked at our conversations between industry and academia, by way of responsibilities at USIBC, I co-chair the AI Joint Task Force, and I co-chair the Digital Economy Committee. For us, AI becomes that node that starts unlocking technology for everyone, which is a bit like sunlight. So you create transparency, you open conversations up. It's not a technology that's only for coders, only for geeks. It's technology that's impacting everybody. So before I yield the mic, my last outing was in Uttar Pradesh, where about 170 MLAs and MPs sat through a 2-hour workshop trying to understand how is it that the largest state in the country, which would be the 5th largest country in the world by way of population, can unlock citizen-centric solutions using AI in agriculture, in education, in manufacturing, in IoT, in solutions which will look at basic MSME, SMEs at the smallest level, including the FPOs. That is what AI is doing for us. By way of market size, about $15.7 billion at stake, larger than the combined GDP of India and China. So which is why we're really excited. And the briefing to us was we are going to keep it interactive. So keep those questions, comments, observations coming, both organizationally as well as a personal, somebody who loves technology but has a background in culture, anthropology, society, all the good stuff from liberal arts. I think this is the best time to be in this space. Thank you.
Shekhar, do you wanna go next?
Thank you. My name is Shekhar Sivasubramanian. I head up Vadvani Institute for Artificial Intelligence. Our mission is to deliver AI for the underprivileged and for the people who need it the most. We've got over 25 solutions that reach across right now over 100 million people in India, across healthcare, education, and agriculture. We expect to grow this portfolio quite significantly over the next few years. We work very closely with both central as well as state governments to make our mission happen. Our only reason for existence is to make the two ends meet, the technologies that are available and can be harnessed, and deliver it to Bharat, which is the individuals who are often holding a smartphone for the first time in their hands. So how do you transform from one end of the spectrum to another? We've successfully done it. We represented India as an institute last year in several of the G20s, representing it as part of the Indian government, because we are deeply embedded with the government, both center as well as state, because that's what you need to be in order to make the large-scale impact. Thank you.
So I have two Abrahams on the panel. Let me go alphabetically to Sunil first, and then we'll come to you, Vivek, after that.
Thank you. Very pleased to be in Bangalore. I had the fortune of being raised here. I spent 45 years of my life in this city. Very grateful to the city and for this privilege. I work for Meta. The thing that most people don't know about Meta is it has a long-standing commitment to open source software. Even before this AI moment, there were 1,200 open source projects at Meta. I'll name one more popular one, which is React Native. You may have heard of this open source project. But for the last 10 years, ever since Jan LeCun and his team set up the FAIR Lab, there are 650 open or open source AI models also, which add to our portfolio. So I wanted to connect this to the personal and the professional. So I want to go back all the way to 1993, when my father bought me a desktop here in Bangalore. It was a 386, and it had 4 MB RAM. And I was using desktop publishing software to earn my beer pocket money for engineering college. I was in Dayanand Sagar Engineering College. Every time I took a bitmap, which I had managed to scan using my handheld scanner, and moved it in CorelDRAW, just by a couple of inches, then the processor and memory would max out, and the whole machine would crawl for 2-3 minutes before that single bitmap moved on the screen from one place to the other. Now, if we compare a phone that you can buy for $100 today to the configuration of that 386 in 1993, you will see numbers like this phone is 1,000 times more powerful, this phone is 500 times more powerful. But very oddly, most of the users of these phones, even the budget phones or the expensive phones, they use a very small amount of the memory and processor as part of their daily usage. What is exciting about today and some of the work happening at Meta is we will have small large language models. So in the Llama family itself, there is a 1 billion parameter model, which is just 1 GB. And there is a separate project which was announced 2 weeks ago called Mobile LLM. That project, the smallest size of the model there is 128 MB. Now I go to a side story, which is a friend of mine in rural Maharashtra for 3 months working on a architectural project. And he wanted to do research, but there was no connectivity. So the future of not just AI development and training, but also the use of AI, I believe is going to be this distributed vision where all our devices and all our software is going to get smarter thanks to building blocks of artificial intelligence. And all of us as humans are going to be much more capable at everything we do, no matter what it is that we do.
Thank you, Sunil. So, in fact, the interesting thing is even my first gig was actually to assemble computers. I used to come to Bangalore, get the parts back home to Kerala, and then assemble and sell. That was my first gig as well. So, good to know that. So, moving on to next, Vivek, and then to you, Charmaine, after that.
Well, thank you, Nikhil. So, my name is Vivek Abraham. I represent a company called Salesforce. We are one of the largest enterprise software companies in the world today. My role is essentially covering the public policy and government affairs function for Salesforce in India and the subcontinent. And also, we recently started a public sector business in India, so I sort of shepherd it in a way or mentor it in a way. And I want to pick up your question on how has it impacted my life personally first. And I want to place on record, thank you to Meta AI, because you have really helped me do my son's homework in record time. As all parents know, it's really the parents doing the homework. So, it's freed up a lot of my time. And, it's obviously my son is doing much better in school as of today. But which is great because professionally, my life has become busier, right? I studied to be a computer engineer. I also did a lot of the crazy stuff that you did with a little more advanced tech, 486. But I've not done programming since my engineering. And about 25 years later, in 25 years later, we're all having to learn what an AI agent does or what an LLM does and do a little bit of prompt engineering, programming, etc. So I've already built a few of my bots on the Salesforce platform. And it's quite interesting because the nature of programming and the nature of computer engineering is fundamentally changing, right? So earlier you needed to learn heuristics, algorithms, ways of thinking, more, all that is out of the window now. All you need to do is really have a clear vision of what your objective is and have the ability to specify that in clear English language or any other language that the LLM is willing to take in. And it could be a video, it could be an audio, whatever it is. And the LLM does it for you, whether it's creating an app, whether it's creating emails or your calendar, whatever it is. And I think the vision for us at Salesforce is that AI is already an integral part of our life, and it's going to be a much more embedded nature or embedded technology to the extent that we won't even realize that there's a lot of things. I mean, for example, a lot of our apps are running on AI already. We don't realize it, but for example, the Gmail or Netflix, there's tons of AI that's happening in the background that gives you the right options or choices in front of you every single day. And I think that will just get more and more embedded in our devices, in our experiences. I expect in a few years, BTS will be completely AI enabled, for example, So you'll automatically be able to say who's allowed in, who's not allowed in, right at the gate, and there'll be, probably traffic management, which is AI enabled. So, and we won't realize, we will accept it as a way of life going forward, which poses an interesting problem because now we see AI as a prompt window or something on a desktop screen, and we are regulating for that. And my job is sort of become more evangelizing on, hold on, I think broaden your vision. AI is going to be a whole lot more interesting than that. And I think we need to think about regulation or working with, or how do we build safer AI or better AI in a much more expansive way than just controlling what goes in and out that prompt window. So yeah, that's my life.
Thank you, Vivek. Interesting that you mentioned because even I was an engineering dropout and then turned and became a lawyer who advises tech companies. So that's sort of my mojo, so to speak. Moving on to Charmaine.
Thank you, Nikhil. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charmaine Ng, and I have a very different background from the rest of my panelists. I'm trained as a lawyer, and in my bid to try and do some good for this world, I pivoted to public policy. So as I sit here on this panel today, I'm wearing two hats. The first hat is as Director of Asia Pacific Digital Policy at Schneider Electric, which is a French energy management company that has been operating in India for over 60 years. We have over 37,000 employees, 3 factories across the north, south, and west of India, so a company that is very, very committed to this great country. Wearing this hat, I will be talking to you a little bit about AI in energy management and sustainability. Now, with my other hat on, it is as a council member in the World Economic Forum's Global Future Council on Technology Policy. Wearing this hat, I'll be really happy to share some thoughts on the future of AI policy and the future of technology policy. These are really, really exciting times that we live in. Policymakers are thinking more and more about AI governance frameworks, and to this end, my colleagues at the forum and I have recently published a white paper. It's titled Technology Policy, Responsible Design for a Flourishing World. And in this white paper, which we intend as a guide for policymakers worldwide as they continue to think about how to develop good AI policy that supports democratic values, processes, and institutions. We talk about the importance of human centricity in AI policy and technology policy, and we talk about the importance of multi-stakeholder collaboration, something that you would have heard repeated so many times earlier today and yesterday. So over the next 50 or so minutes, I'm really excited to debate these ideas with my fellow panelists and with you all in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Charmaine. So one, I just want to do a very quick poll, right? So by show of hands. So the question essentially is, how do you regulate a probabilistic prediction technology like AI, right? Which could give one set of an answer if you ask the question in a certain manner, and another set of an answer if you ask the prompt in a very different manner, right? So there are a bunch of models that we see around the globe. I think one model which a lot of folks are talking about because of the fact that they're always the first to regulate technology is the EU model, the EU AI Act. So before I come to the panelists, I just want to see how the audience react to it. So the question is, should India go down the European Union's model of regulation of AI, which is very prescriptive, very similar to the other models of regulations that we see when it comes to data or ESG and other aspects that you see in the European Union. Any views? I just want to see a show of hands. Those who say yes, please, please. We should have a regulation like EU. And those who say no. I think sort of no is winning. I think probably we could come to you. I mean, you want to share your view on why do you think it should be regulated like the EU way?
I'm not completely saying. My name is Abi, by the way, and I represent a team. We are into AI consulting to SMBs. So the main thing, I'm not completely honoring everything what EU was doing, but my question again, back to that particular point is, when the policymakers comes to AI policy making regarding the data usage or specific domain usage, how effective it will be based on the geography. In terms of, for each domain, you will have their own data policies or usage. For example, LLM, all we use in Meta or Gemini or Lambda, and if you are restricting them from the policymaker side, whether it is going to impact the startups, they are going to use these LLMs in such a way or maybe restrict the innovations. So same time, one area we need to have this data policy regulated for better usage. Same time, it should not be a regulation or restriction for the other companies so they can start up their innovation and let these major companies being in monopoly in this specific area. Thank you.
Very, very interesting point. Someone wants to respond to that? And
yeah. Thank you for hitting the nail on the head and putting the spotlight on the heart of the matter. When it comes to technology, law, I believe, and there are a lot of lawyers in the room, will always play catch up with policy. The speed and nature of technology, and especially when startups are driving it, is disruption. The scale of change, the pace at which we're looking at things. So while, and I come from both the worlds of telecom as well as internet, I served a 3-year term on the United Nations Internet Governance Forum, where we brought together the multi-stakeholder model of private sector, industry, government, intergovernmental organizations, academia, media, civil society. The biggest questions in the room is who's in the room. And therefore, when we look at artificial intelligence in particular, this is a developing technology. So a lot of times, countries and companies would ask for templates. And you thought this is really funny because how do you templatize regulation? When you look at the telecom world, the adage is TRAI, the Indian regulator for telecommunications, has largely 3 powers, and that's the BEAR Act, in which you read the ordinance and it talks about, 1, I regulate tariff, I decide how much is good, how much is bad. 2, I look at consumer interest, which largely translates into interest of citizens, which would translate into fair market play, level fields, competitive behavior, which allows for proliferation. And the most important part, which is often the least debated, is orderly growth of the industry. So the test of a good regulation is, are you looking at adoption, proliferation, or are you looking at putting the cart before the horse? So are we there? Not quite. This is technology which is still developing. There are use cases which are still developing. In other cases, you've seen examples. When it comes to the European Union, there's a lot of debate currently about GDPR. Was it good? Was it bad? Because now you have enough time and the wisdom of hindsight to see our countries, and especially countries and companies which have really quick, innovative interventions, ideas that can create transformative impact, not just incremental, but progressive and transformational impact. Are they looking at basing their businesses? Are they looking at adopting these countries as great models? When it comes to governments, and irrespective of which country you're in, they'll always look for the kill switch. They'll look for a switch for control. That is why it's really important for the geeks and the nerds and developers and coders to be in the rooms, which is the best part about Bengaluru Tech Summit, because it brings everybody together. It allows government officials who could be working on coal, technology, or mining one day, and today they're supposed to come up with solutions. So the good part is we're having consultations. The great part is both your ministers of state as well as center are saying that this government is not going to be prescriptive. And that's best news that you can get as a company or a startup which is looking at development. Not to argue that we're asking for a wild, wild west. We are saying that ethical guidelines, especially those that call for accountability, that call for transparency, they're fantastic. Showcasing what you're doing and sharing what you're doing, building an ecosystem around it, which is the approach that we take at InMobi and Glance, is phenomenal. And making sure that you're sharing. So therefore, initiatives like the US-India CEO Forum, like the Nihit Knowledge that we've created, plus coming up with frameworks that take the global south into account. Not just the West, white, male, European, making rules for the rest of the world. That is why forums like these, forums like the IGF, forums like the ISOC, they make amazing contributions which, without being prescriptive, allow you to share your thoughts, allow you to look for decentralized models of governance. So you can have maximum governance or good governance with minimum government interventions as well. Thank you.
You want to respond, Vivek, on that?
Yeah, so just 2 points, not a direct answer, but just 2 important points to keep in mind when you're talking about AI regulation. See, AI is very different from a lot of other technologies, that it is a fundamentally probabilistic technology. And that is a feature, that is an advantage, that is a benefit that you want to leverage. What do I mean by probabilistic in a sort of layman's terms? All of us have WhatsApp. All of us have, and I'm sorry for punting Meta AI again into the conversation, but just click on the Meta AI button. Think of any prompts that you want to put in, let's say, create an email to something, and just this identical prompt, keep putting it into the prompt engine again and again and again. And what you'll see is that the output for each time you put the same identical prompt will be different. Why that is the case is because it's a fundamentally probably, you don't know exactly what the output is going to be. So what does that mean in terms of regulation? You can nail down every aspect of everything that you do to build the AI or what you put into the AI, you will still get a different output. You might get a quote-unquote wrong output every single time. So I think we need to step back and rethink the model of regulation. I'm not I'm not saying that the prescriptive model is the best one or the laissez-faire market regulation one is the fair one, is a good model. I think it's for a lot of us to debate and take that point. The second point is, I think we also need to think about how do we use technology to protect ourselves from some of the risks that we see in AI. And again, I want to sort of take you to the point that when you're going to be using AI in an ecosystem sort of a perspective, ecosystem framework. So, for example, you're using AI in your car, okay? There are going to be layers or platforms in the middle when you're putting in your data or your instructions, which will filter out your personal information so that they don't get transmitted to the rest of the world. Is it perfect? Probably not. But no technology is perfect. For example, aeroplanes. Is it 100% perfect? No. We still do have accidents. But have we stopped flying? No. We have an acceptable limit of tolerance of failures. We can keep on regulating or having better standards of doing things. And I think that's what we need to be aiming at. But hoping for a 100% perfect world in any technology, even if it is AI, I think is a pointless exercise. I think we'll just go around in circles.
Interesting. You want to respond to
Could
that?
I just supplement to what my colleagues just said in response to the question about an increasingly fragmented regulatory landscape in technology? So all forms of technology policy is becoming so fragmented, not just AI policy. And it is because of this that it is so important that we have multi-stakeholder collaboration of experts across different industries, across different sectors, and across different jurisdictions coming together to share expertise on what we know about the technology, where the technology could bring us, what the risks might be to privacy, to trust, to security, to democracy, and to create international standards for AI safety, and make sure that these international standards are interoperable across jurisdictions whenever and wherever possible. It is through international AI safety standards that organizations can operationalize the way that they think about and do AI safety, because ultimately, just as the internet knows no jurisdictional borders, AI is not going to know any jurisdictional borders, and for it to properly work for the benefit of humanity, we need regulations, we need standards that are interoperable across countries.
So I see Sunil taking notes. I'm not sure if you want to respond to it or...
I think most things are covered. I just wanted to quarrel about a very minor point. I think traditional AI systems are clearly probabilistic in the sense, if you take examples like biometric systems, whether it's face recognition or fingerprint recognition, there is a representation of your biometric template in the central database at UIDAI, and then there is the version which you have just provided on the device, on the camera or on the reader. And then the algorithm tries to match, and it comes up with two, usually the device that you're sold comes with two ratios, a false positive ratio and a false negative ratio. So it's a very clear purpose to this technology, and therefore probabilistic is perhaps the right word for that type of technology. Now, this large language models, very strange technological artifact. The public internet is 100 exabytes of data. We take all of that data and through some magic, completely unexplained by science today, we compress it to a 1 GB file. And now this 1 GB file is behaving like a personal assistant. So its answers depend on what I'm sort of prompting it to do. If I ask it to play the role of somebody that is flawed, that is somebody who believes in flat earth, and please answer some scientific question from the perspective of somebody who believes in the flat earth, is going to give falsehoods. Precisely because that is my prompt. My prompt is produce some falsehoods. So very unlike biometric systems, which gave yes, no answers with degrees of confidence, here having a falsehood is perhaps a feature of the technology. So non-deterministic, I feel, is the better label for this type of technology, because that is a feature in some cases. So somebody using the LLM on their phone to write a new poem should be unregulated. Somebody using it to write a new story for a movie or a lyric for a song, all of this ideally should be unregulated. This is roughly in the space of autocomplete technology. But somebody finalizing a medical report or a medical diagnosis, this is a clearly high-risk issue. And I like quoting Lina Khan. Usually you won't get Meta employees quoting Lina Khan all the time. But I think the point she made, that there is no AI exception to the laws on the books, that is a wonderful point that everybody should repeat. Just because you're using AI, you cannot start breaking the laws. Lots of the existing harms that we are worried about are covered by laws in India, in the US, in many jurisdictions. There are some novel harms that are there. For that specific use cases, specific domains, we may need sectoral regulation. That would be what I would say.
So I think what I'm getting from the panel largely is that a sectoral approach is probably better, and because most of the harms are largely covered, but there could be a need for an accountability framework, so to speak, if that's required, right? So that's where I think everyone of you is sort of inclined to. So any more questions from
Nikhil,
the
use case approach, not sectoral approach.
Sorry?
Use case approach.
Use case approach.
Use case approach.
Use case approach.
Yeah.
Got it. So I can see someone's hand go up from behind. Yeah.
Sir, actually, I have a doubt.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Harsha. I am from Bangalore only. I use Meta for all my work and all. Actually, it is very good for me, and it is increasing the pace with which I can do the things. But I have a doubt in that one. See, suppose the data, it is not always correct. Sometimes mistakes do happen in that one. And if I am building some other things, and if I incur some financial loss, whether consumer law aspects can be brought here. So, because one more thing I want to highlight here, because every time I see an advertise regarding the Gemini or Google things, Google say, Pucho, everything you will get to know the things. So if the Google tells the wrong answer, and if that person is going to have the loss, financial loss, whether I can sue the Google there?
So I think because I'm the lawyer in this panel, let me take that question. So first of all, under Indian consumer law, you cannot sue for free services. So unless you don't pay for a service, you cannot sue for your services. That's one. Secondly, even assuming that you pay for a service, there are a bunch of things that's relevant. So for instance, if any of the LLM technology is giving you an answer which is long, if you're actioning a different action on the basis of that, you unfortunately cannot have any sort of claim before a consumer court. That's to answer it simply, but happy to chat on that offline as well if required. You want to weigh in? Sure.
Hello? Yeah. On the earlier point, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. I'll just pose a fun question. Can you take EU traffic regulatory standards and implement it in India? That's the question. Everything is about contextualization. If you cannot contextualize your solutions in India, second question, can you create a line in India in front of a grocery store? Or is it always going to be a beehive structure of people? Why do I mention this? Specifically in AI, you're going to find a few very important things that you have to take note of. One, we speak about the internet being consumed. How much of Uriya is there in the internet? How much is there from Meghalaya? How much is there from Tamil Nadu? So you have a creation of a corpus in a certain manner which serves a certain profile of the world at large. How can you roll out policies where 70 to 80% of a country is working its way up, present in rural, semi-rural sector, with languages which are different, cultures which are different, which, by the way, we must celebrate and not try and get everybody to anglicize the manner in which they use WhatsApp. We must allow them their freedom and their independence to do what they want, express what they want, live the life that they want. How does AI coexist where the presupposed assumption is standardization? The presupposed assumption is as long as you're in the middle of the normal distribution curve, your prediction is good. The moment you're an outlier, I don't know what's happening. We are in the outlier. The entire country is in the outlier. We can have aspirations at this stage, theoretical aspirations. You want to go to reality, you have to wait for a period of time. You have to do it, you have to discover it, you have to understand it, and then policies should come. There are some basic guidelines. I agree with Sunil, and I agree with what was just said, which is anything with safety, obviously. But other things, let the system evolve. Give it some time. How many people, again, let's make a distinction between India and Bharat. All of us are in the India room. There's a Bharat out there. So a policy is applicable for a farmer in Gujarat growing cotton, and he must now follow the norms of a certain technology that he does not even understand. We have released for 1 lakh plus farmers. We know their conversations. They're quite different from what will take place here. You have to address it in that manner. And policies must be all-encompassing for a population and relevant and meaningful. That's why I made that comment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Sunil, you want to go next?
Just a short point here. Very, very important not to miss, and building on what he just said, there's never a policy for a single company. Okay, it'll always be for the entire ecosystem. Second, really important point, regulation of development versus regulation of use cases will always be different. So we should never be conflating the two together. And third, really important point, the law of the land, irrespective of what you're doing, there's enough and more protection that exists when you read the IT Act together, when you start reading use cases which are based on no harm principles. So before you go back to the government asking for more laws and more regulations, the government might actually give them to you. That is why you must stop, think before you ask for more laws and more regulation. Sunil, over to you.
Dr. Chaturvedi has said it in a slogan, but I want to explain it because not everybody has PhDs like her, so maybe they didn't get. What Dr. Sivasubramaniam said is, Indian languages don't have corpora. So that is a big issue when it comes to making language models with Indian languages. But what is the magic of this technology, which we still don't fully understand? The magic of this technology, especially the self-supervised learning paradigm, is that the developer need not understand the language. So a Kannadiga developer, using standard methods, can make a reasonably performant Santali model, as long as they have access to some small corpora. So now we come to the point you're asking about consumer liability. And the point that Dr. Chaturvedi just made about regulating the development. So somebody wants to make a Santali model, a Kannadiga developer. He wants to release it on the internet. But given the state of corpora, it has only 90% accuracy. 10% of the translations, 100% wrong, can cause harm. With a strict liability approach, those kind of developments will never happen. It will wait for some Santali developer to come and have the resources to make a perfect model, etc. So let us not use regulation to crush. These opportunities don't exist in any other paradigm. If we have to go with labeled data, maybe the Santali language will never get a proper model or a translation model. So again, to just underscore the point she made, don't regulate the development. If there is some high-risk use case, Santali judge is using it in court, then maybe there is some reason to have some rules and obligations there. But if it's not a high-risk use case, then there is no, because people are taking this technology with full knowledge of the risks. And ideally, we should have warnings and all of that in the products. So I hope we are answering your question fully.
So there's another question from the audience. In fact, there are a couple of them.
I'm going to jump in here.
Why
don't we take a couple of questions? We have a couple more minutes. I'm going to ask for a rapid-fire question here. So if everyone across the panel, and I'll let the moderator sort of take a couple of questions. If everyone can answer quickly, maybe 30 seconds. In the corridors here, a lot of VCs have approached me. A lot of startups and VCs have approached me from India. And if you could tell an Indian startup one thing, what would be the most important thing for them to be successful? And then I'll hand the microphone around to see if there's other questions as well.
Just a 30-second response. Solve for policy first. Don't make that an afterthought. Jay, we are sticking to time.
One question to you all. There's a lot of infrastructure that's required. Right? We can all talk about the AI highway. When in India right now we have 150,000 kilometers of national highway, 150,000 kilometers of state highway, and 70 lakh kilometers of non-state, and forget about the rest of the places, what Dr. Shekhar said, you can't even reach. This AI to really reach, etc. What we're talking about are models that are in some super expressway actually. If we're all seeking to do, and I think all startups want to participate, we all want to invest, is there any sort of fix on what this is going to cost? Because it cost us maybe upwards of, the first $200 billion has gone in for the super expressway for the English. We're talking about languages, we're talking about access. So how should we cut through this?
Shikhar, you want
If we're going to go sequentially putting another $500 billion, I don't know whether we can really afford it. And somebody has to put the money. It's the big tech that's putting in the money right now. So what sort of controls?
Shikhar, you want to get that? We just have like a couple of minutes.
Sure.
Sorry,
just a quick answer. I think a lot of the discussion tends to be skewed in favor of LLMs. There is a whole AI that is outside of LLMs. And that is a totally different ballgame that requires a much smaller level of investment. So I can assure you that a lot of it is easy. If you do the LLM piece, we'll have to allow the dust to settle in terms of the players, the charging models, etc., as well as the maturing. There is going to be another tectonic shift that will occur in the next 6 months to a year, where neurosymbolic computing, the context of using logic. See, the problem with LLM is it just does a next word prediction of sorts. And it does all kinds of things with it. There is the earlier AI, 1980s, 90s AI, which is very mature, which is capturing knowledge in the form of knowledge structures, which is more semantic in nature. That means it means something. The new AI that will have to come will have to apply the constraints of what in simple terms we will call common sense. Codified common sense, if it can be applied as a constraint on large language models, that's when it will become useful. At some point, the cost structures of all of this will have to start addressing the marketplace. I don't think it is there at this point. It'll have to take some time. I think it's still at the early stage of, and I personally, this is my prediction, there is going to be something fairly large that will take place in the next 2 years that will reshake the entire economic and overall structure of AI. This is my hunch, because I've seen this in the mortgage crisis of which I was a part. When things bloat a little bit and start becoming somewhat unnatural, nature has a way of correcting it. So we expect that almost.
Yeah, I think you can go next, and we can probably take the two questions together.
So we have taken the industrial perspective here today. From a socio-economic perspective, I want to make a quick comment and then a question. So EU's regulations, for example, they are shaped by their post-industrial economy, and they emphasize sustainability and privacy now. For India and a lot of the global south, our priorities lie in growth. They lie in bridging the digital divide. They lie in enabling access to the underprivileged and the underserved, right? So I represent a company called Glance. Our lock screen, basically in the urban setting, it serves a different purpose, but in a rural setting, it serves a totally different purpose. For people who have smartphones in the rural areas, they don't know how to even download apps. So glance as a medium for them is a medium for instruction, a medium for knowledge, and a medium for information.
Sure.
It might not be
Thank
the
you.
same.
I think we can move to the
just
last question.
Just a question.
Huh.
So question would be that why, now that we have the biggest talent pool in the world in AI, why are we still looking at EU for regulations, and what would be that one biggest barrier that you think that India and the global south is not leading in AI policy? So this would be a question to everybody, like what's one?
Sure. Like we can move to the last question. We'll take it together.
Hi, thanks. So I'll stick to policy, keeping that policy is not an afterthought. Now, as we know in this fast-changing world, wherein yesterday's showstoppers may be, the outdated elements for tomorrow, we would like to also see the delta of policy change. So I would like to understand, rather than having it at an abstract level that, okay, policy has to be involving all the elements and so on and so forth, I would like to understand how Meta or Salesforce, what level of specificity of periodicity in change of policies that you have implemented, or you have some plans that, okay, here is a team, they've been given some kind of a mandate so that we have formed the policy, but this is how we would like to be there at the edge of updated policies.
Sure. I think the questions are pretty similar. If you could answer not more than in 15 seconds.
Just one quick comment to Sudhir, and great comment right up front. When we're looking at building and solving for realities in policy, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we just signed, and this is the USI, which is working on cybersecurity defense, signing an MOU with the CSCs, Common Service Centers, where BharatNet, the national optic fiber cable, is ending. They were looking at bridging last mile connectivity. So where you would normally get proof and certificates for staying alive and getting your Aadhaar cards made, they are now becoming your first point of contact for experiencing AI for the first time. So crop insurance, what kind of weather will allow for what? Simple solutions given in local languages. And that's where you maximize ROI on investment. So bringing networks together may be one solution.
We have a regular cadence of policy forums, and these are fora where all stakeholders can come and ask Meta to do things which are beyond the legal obligations. So there's legal speech, but then there is speech that is allowed on our platforms, which is a subset of your constitutionally guaranteed speech rights. And all of those community standards are used to train a 8 billion parameter model called Llama Guard. And when you download Llama or any other model, you can put Llama Guard in front of it. And if you have your own, as an entrepreneur, you have your own vision on what should be allowed, you can continue the fine-tuning of that Llama Guard weights file, and you can very dynamically fix your product to changing laws or expectations. I hope I've answered.
So they wanted him to answer. You want to comment next, Shriko?
Yeah, just +1 to Sunil. And I think just a very quick comment, a lot of the policy discussions internally right now are being dictated by how fast the technology is moving. So it's absolutely not static. I mean, it's designed to be dynamic. It's a work in progress. Half our policy documents are draft documents, and almost every 2 weeks, I think we have a huddle on figuring out where the technology is heading, and we have to augment our view that way.
Yeah. So, Shekhar, the mic is in front of you.
I'll answer your question, which is...
very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly.
And then I want to give 10 seconds to Shamin as well. As a closing.
30 seconds. We will start creating a significant impact in India when people in India, Indians and others, use their native intelligence and solve problems for ourselves, designed by ourselves. A lot of our designs and thinking still is influenced by the world at large. Take a whiteboard, take a marker, sit down alone, solve the problem for India, in India. The day we do a critical mass of that, that's when you will start influencing the ecosystem.
Charmaine, over to you for the concluding remarks.
Thank you. So as concluding remarks, I'd like to say this. AI is here to stay. That is not in question. And as we continue to imagine what the future could look like, and as we continue to build the future that we want to see, we must absolutely work together, hand in hand, across government, private sector, civil society, academia, all of us coming together to create a safe and secure world of technology, bringing in perspectives of the underserved population, being inclusive of people who are traditionally forgotten as we develop policy. And it is only when we work together to create these international standards, interoperable across jurisdictions, can we harness the power of AI to create a sustainable, inclusive, and prosperous future for all. So I encourage all of us to all work together and do more together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.